Good morning, best friends. Allie Duzette here, and we have something very exciting happening today. Of course, Saturn is entering Pisces, and I want to talk to you about it. Okay, this is the chart of this transit. So as you can see, I have it set up here to go 1 minute at a time. And so at 6:34 a.m. Mountain Time on March 7th, we're at 29 degrees and 59 minutes, and then boom, at 6:35 a.m., Saturn is at 0000 of Pisces. It's happening. Okay, so what are some things that we need to know about Saturn entering Pisces? First off, Saturn has a longer orbit. It takes 29 years for Saturn to go all the way around the sun, which is why your Saturn return takes about 29 and a half years to happen. It doesn't happen exactly on your half birthday when you're 29, but right when Saturn reaches the degree that it was at in the minute, to the degree and minute where it was when you were born, that's when you have your Saturn return, and the chart that is generated from that moment, just like I showed you this minute, that the magical minute that Saturn is entering Pisces at 0000, your own natal Saturn on your natal chart has a degree and minute, and when Saturn hits that again, that's when you have your Saturn return. So anybody with Saturn in Pisces, your Saturn return is up ahead. So warning, warning, the secret with dealing with Saturn returns is that Saturn calls back your karma to you. Basically, it works as a boomerang, okay? Whatever good you put out in the world, the consequences come back to you. Whatever bad you throw out into the world, the consequences come back to you. So you want to be very sure as you lead up to your Saturn return, and also just for general life, because it's a good idea, be a good person, go and resolve the stuff that needs to be resolved in your life. If you've stolen from people, if you've gossiped, if you have, I don't know, done whatever kind of weird stuff that you have done that is not good, now's the time to resolve it. If you can resolve these things before your Saturn return, so much the better, because that chart is an indicator of how your life will go from that point for the next 29 and a half years. So Saturn is going to be in Pisces for about 3 years. It's going to retrograde back into Aquarius for, a little while, sometime, I think, later this year. But overall, Saturn is going to be in Pisces for the next 3-ish years. I believe it exits in 2026. So here we go. It all begins today. And this is the chart of that moment. And so I wanted to just take a minute and analyze this chart for you so that we can kind of get a feel for the next 3 years when it comes to Saturn. So again, this is the chart for basically everybody in the whole world. If we get rid of the, we have to kind of discount the houses, because you can't run a chart for the entire world without a location, right? So I ran this from Springville, Utah, which is my default settings on my program. But we can analyze this in terms of the house placements and all of this stuff in the middle. What is everything interacting with? And the first thing that really stands out to me is that Saturn in this chart is making these blue lines right here to this horseshoe, known as the South Node, and this horseshoe, known as the North Node. And what does that tell me? Blue lines indicate a flow of energies. It's telling me that this Saturn transit is going to seriously impact the destiny of everyone alive on the planet. These are the nodes of destiny. And conversely, everyone's destiny is going to impact how Saturn in Pisces plays out. So that is the first thing that I wanted to mention, is that this is not normal. The nodes of destiny are calculated based on the movements of the moon, not the movements of Saturn. So it would not be normal for every time Saturn enters or exits a sign for it to exactly make this beautiful trine and sextile with the nodal path. That's just not likely, I'm sure that is rare. So we have the next 3 years where whatever is going to be going on with Saturn in Pisces is going to be intimately involved with the destinies of everybody on the planet. And I think that this makes a lot of sense, because Pisces governs the subconscious mind. Okay, let's go back to the chart. Okay, this is Pisces, this little magenta shape here, and the glyph doesn't necessarily look like it, but it's 2 fish swimming in opposite directions, but they're being tied together, and that's such a beautiful representation of the duality of Pisces. Pisces struggles with issues of illusion versus delusion. You know, are they imagining things or are they actually psychic, right? That's one of the big questions of Pisces. People with a lot of Pisces, myself included, can come off as, totally insane or very visionary. And it just depends on if they're actually insane or actually visionary, what their energy is on the inside, the other stuff going on in their chart, and how other people perceive them, which comes down to where Pisces is on your chart and the things interacting with Pisces in your own chart. Your own chart is going to really influence how you perceive other people, because of how it all interacts. Every time that two people get together, you can run a double chart. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, that's my check-in. I was just checking on something. And so this is called a synastry chart. And you can look at these charts and see how people interact with each other based on the double chart. And the thing is that you live this. You already live this. Just because you have not worked with a synastry chart does not mean that you are not an expert in it, because you are a lived expert. Every interaction you have with other people is an interplay between your stars and their stars. Your natal charts are interacting, and you see it in every interaction if you know what you're looking for. And most people don't, which is fine. You are living these things whether or not you realize it. Okay. So Saturn in Pisces is going to deal heavily with issues of illusion versus delusion. And spirituality. Pisces, again, is the guy in charge of the subconscious mind. I really view Pisces, so I am a Christian. I believe that Pisces is, whatever's going on in Pisces is a good indicator of how that person interacts with the Holy Spirit. Basically, when people tend to have a lot of Pisces in their chart, and well-aspected Pisces or a well-aspected Neptune, this is Neptune and he's in charge of Pisces. To me, I don't know, that I can learn a lot about somebody's chart and how they interact on a spiritual level with God, based on what's going on in Pisces. And so as we're heading into, what I believe are kind of like the end times, but either way, whether or not you believe it, we're looking at Agenda 2030 coming up on a UN level. We have crazy stuff happening in China and Russia and Ukraine. And I was just reading up on South Africa yesterday. I had no idea South Africa is like falling apart and on the brink of civil war. There's a whole lot of places right now that are really struggling. And we are going to be going through a massive transformation of the globalism as we know it is shifting right now. And by the end of this Saturn transit, I think we're going to see that the world is a very, very different place than it was when we began this transit today. So back to this. Okay, why are we talking about this? Because this is all tied back to the nodes. Now, one other thing that's really interesting here is this stellium, Vesta, Jupiter, Chiron, and Venus all together in Aries. Okay, I'm just going to go in the row. Vesta is the asteroid goddess that keeps the fires of life alive. She does whatever it takes to keep the fire of life alive. And when I say that, I'm referring to actually like the Vestal Virgins, which was the name of the priestesses at the temple of Vesta in ancient Rome. And their one job was to make sure that the different fires in this temple were kept going all through the night, all through the day. They could never stop burning. And wherever Vesta is on your chart, that's where you are trying to keep the fires of life alive. One symbol of what Vesta's just she's just busy because she doesn't sleep. She's taking care of the fires. Wherever Vesta is, she is very motivated, very busy, and preoccupied with what's going to keep people alive. Okay. So up next on the chart is going to be Jupiter, who is the planet of luck and money, fortune, dealing with money and fortune. This is Chiron, who deals with the greatest soul wound and also our greatest mastery, the flip side of the coin. And this is Venus, who is all about money and luck, also romance, feminine energy. She's the receiver. Jupiter is called the great benefic, or like the big lucky guy of the chart, because Jupiter bestows blessings wherever he is, and then Venus is the receiver and she receives the blessings. But it all depends on the energy that the person's, the native brings to the chart. So you could have a Venus that really struggles to make money, and you can have a Jupiter that is having a really hard time. Like, everybody has a Jupiter placement, but not everybody is rich, right? And so all of these planets and asteroids and calculations in a chart, how they show up for you is really going to depend on how you show up for you. It all depends on you. It all depends on how you show up and interact with this stuff in your life. If you have a really positive attitude, probably things are going to be more positive for you. And if you have a really negative attitude, it doesn't matter how many beneficial aspects you have, things may still be very difficult for you. So it all comes back to our own choices, how these things play out. But in general, Jupiter and Venus are considered lucky. So we have this really interesting situation here where we have this one keeping the fires of light, so the fires of life alive, money, the deepest soul wound, and receiving things, romance, relationships, and all of this is in one tiny clump, just for, oh, nope, this one is on the outer edge. This is 6 degrees. Typically, you would count a stellium as 3 or more things within a space of 7 degrees. And some astrologers say it has to be 5 different things in the same sign, or they might have 3 different things within 10 degrees. Different astrologers count stelliums in different ways, but I count it as 3 or more things within 7 degrees. So here we go. That is certainly within 7 degrees. And if we're going by the other way, we add Juno in here, who governs money, marriage, relationships. Again, different flavors than Jupiter and Venus, but still the same genre. And all of this is in Aries. Aries is the energy of every man for himself. It's the energy of self-care in its positive side. Aries is going to make sure that it is taken care of. And that is a really good and beautiful thing. And I think a lot of people could learn a lot from that from Aries. I feel like I could learn that from Aries. My own native Aries is intercepted. So Aries energy is something that I kind of struggle with, applying in my personal life at times. But that focus on self-care and making sure that the self is taken care of is a beautiful aspect of Aries, or it can be. And of course, the dark side is when Aries energy puts itself first to the exclusion of the needs of other people. And I don't know, it's a balance, right? And that's why opposite from Aries is Libra. And the big goal of this axis is to learn that balance between taking care of myself and taking care of other people, right? How do we balance my own need for self-care and the fact that I have 5 kids? This is the question of this axis. How do you stay true to yourself while also interacting with other people? And interestingly, Venus is the boss of Libra, and she's over here in Aries for this transit. This is the chart that will influence the transit of Saturn, or not necessarily influence it, but this is the birthday of this Saturn transit. So these are the themes that we're going to be seeing, is the theme of every man for himself when it comes to our relationships, our money, all of the busy stuff we have to do just to stay alive, marriages, perhaps. And then it's all going to invite us to really dig deeply into our own deepest soul wounds for the purpose of transforming them into places where we are masterful instead. That is the goal of Chiron. It takes our wounding and transforms it into mastery. So what does that mean for the next 3 years? To me, I'm looking at that and thinking, well, I think it makes a lot of sense. Just keeping a very loose eye on the geopolitical situation right now. We're seeing a lot of really big changes and a lot of things involving the economy, a lot of things involving relationships. I'm talking now about big transformations in societal norms as far as marriage, relationships. What is a family? What kind of relationships are approved versus not approved by society, by individuals. All of these things are transforming. And I think we can see for ourselves how much it has this flavor of every man for himself. You do you, every man for himself, right? You get to choose what feels right to you, and we'll just all agree with that or go along with it, tolerate it, Um, and so I think this will be a really interesting energy though, because I think historically we have seen what happens when traditional societal structures start transforming. I mean, I'll just say I feel like that it has been linked to civilizational collapse in other civilizations in the past. And Saturn, of course, is the boomerang that calls back to us the things that we put out into the world. And if we're putting out an every man for himself kind of energy during this transit, what we're going to get back is an every man for himself kind of energy too. And it's all fun and games when you yourself, are very fit and have plenty of money and are good looking and your life is easy for you and every man for himself can work out well for you. But for the vast majority of humankind, every man for himself is a failing concept that is just not sustainable in the long term for the majority of humans, right? We need each other. And that's part of the beauty of this planet, is that we come here and we have these bodies that are fragile and that have struggles. And even a healthy body is going to have some weird abnormalities that, set them apart from other bodies. And just on a strict body level, we need each other. I did not build my own house, right? And I don't want to, and also I can't. Like, when we get right down to it, do I have the muscle mass to build myself a log cabin? The answer is no. I need somebody else to help me with that. And that's the joy of human life, is that no man is an island. We do need each other. And so what will it mean as society continues to fragment into this every man for himself? You do you, put yourself first, possibly at the expense of other people. I think that we're going to see for ourselves over the next 3 years, what are the consequences that come back because of those kinds of energies. So let's go back to the chart. Again, Saturn in Pisces, this is going to be me. I'm sorry, can't talk. Okay. The purpose of the sentence that I'm trying to say is that Saturn in Pisces, again, Pisces deals with our connection to the divine. It deals with our connection to our own subconscious mind. When I look at this chart and see that Mercury is so close to Saturn, and let's go and take a little look. Where is it? Mercury, Saturn, they are not considered conjunct in this chart, but they're 8 degrees apart. I don't know. We're going to have our minds and our core selves as an entire planet. There's going to be the little Saturn part of ourselves is going to be oriented and thinking about, what are the consequences of trusting my intuition? What are the consequences of trusting spirit? Okay. And when I say spirit, I say it that way because maybe you've had this experience in your own life where you felt like you were trusting the Holy Spirit, and then afterwards you were like, excuse me, everything that happened clearly indicates that perhaps that was not the Holy Spirit, but some other kind of very dark spirit, right? Have you had that experience? This happens to people, it happens to people, and I don't know, that's the risk that you can take when you are learning to trust your intuition, when you're not fully sure who to trust. Anyways, I wrote a whole book about how to handle that situation. It's called Mastering Your Intuition, and it's on Amazon. So go read that book. I don't want to talk about all that stuff right now. But the point is, we're going to see an increase in people listening to spirits of all kinds. This is going to be a preoccupation mentally and through the entire self. The sun of this transit is in Pisces as well. This is just going to be a very spiritually transformative 3 years. And that doesn't always mean something good for everybody, right? I mean, you see people that do very good things because of their spiritual focuses, and we see people that do very bad things for their spiritual focuses. I'm thinking of things like terrorism and stuff like that. People can justify almost any action based on their spiritual promptings and feeling like they followed a spirit. And I think we're going to see that rising off the charts in the next 3 years. And the trick is making sure that we are in alignment with the good energy, the good spiritual energy in the universe, and making sure that we're in alignment with that. It's tricky because not everything that is good appears kind, right? It doesn't appear nice, right? And So I think we're going to see a lot of people struggling with having to make difficult choices based on right or wrong and how their souls resonate with spiritual energy, having to discern, is this from a good spirit or a bad spirit, a good energy or a bad energy? And then I think we're going to see some cases where the right thing to do is not easy and it's not nice and it doesn't look nice and it probably wouldn't look good on a TV show, if that makes sense. I'm just thinking of just times when the Lord asks you to do things that seem mean, like if you feel like on a spiritual level, you're told to say no to something, that seems like you should say yes to it because that would be the nice thing to do. Have you ever had that happen to you where you felt like the nice thing to do would be to do whatever for somebody, but then you tune into your spirit and the answer is no, 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 you have to say no. And it is stressful to say no when it feels mean, even if it's the right thing to do. Sometimes what's right does not feel nice. And so I think that's one of the big struggles that people are going to deal with during this transit. Now, one other thing I want to mention here is this situation over here. The moon for this Saturn transit for the next couple of years is in Virgo. And I mention that because that's a really tough placement for the moon. The moon it's your feelings, right? It's like the soul of you. It's the inner part of yourself that feels and connects. And Virgo is not a natural feeler and connector, right? Virgo is logical, analytical. It can be cold. I can say that I am a Virgo. I'm a Virgo sun and Pisces moon. So I have that little split of like that analytical, logical, discriminating, as far as like, ranking things and sorting things. That's a very Virgo thing. And Pisces, of course, spirituality. That's the energy of Pisces. It's a big duality. And that is the duality that we're going to face during this transit, is on a core level, on that sun level, and on a Mercury level, our conscious thoughts and our subconscious thoughts, because it's all Pisces. We're in a really heavily Pisces space for the next 3 years. Neptune is in Pisces during this transit, at least during the beginning of it. This is going to be a big time for transformation of our own individual spiritual journeys. And then I think nationally, in your town, globally, we're going to see how the spiritual nature of the world starts to change. And I'm thinking of, I went and saw Shen Yun the other day, last week or 2 weeks ago, which is it's like Chinese dance and acrobatics and stuff. And they just talked about how practitioners of certain religions in China, like to this day, if they see you practicing your religion, they will take you off the street and just go harvest your organs and sell them, just for having a different religion. I think we're going to see on governmental levels changes in how different religions are treated. And I don't know what those changes would be, but I think now that we know, we can just keep an eye on it and see what shifts happen when it comes to that interplay between religion and the state, church and the state. And this placement with the moon in Virgo is going to be a really interesting one, because we're going to have this mental, emotional, we have this Mercury and Sun part of ourselves that's going to be all in on that Pisces spirituality energy, but the moon is still going to be stuck in Virgo. It's still going to be in this place of things have to make sense. Everything can make sense, trying to force the nonsense of spirituality into a logical construct that maybe is not suited for such things. And again, that's like the story of my whole life as a Virgo Pisces myself. But that is some of the stuff that's going to be going on, that real struggle between logic and spirituality, and who gets to win. The part of us that is feeling spirit, or the part of us that demands that everything makes sense. And in the meantime, again, that's all going to be coming back to those nodes of destiny. ferrying all of humanity on the road to our destiny. And with all of that stellium in Aries, we're going to see how it impacts all of us on our journeys to take care of ourselves versus balance with other people and societies. On a global level, that Aries and Libra axis deals with war and alliances. Okay, Aries being the warrior and Libra being the one governing marriage and alliances. And so we have a big focus on the war end of that little seesaw in this chart. I'll show it to you again so you can get it into your mind. That's what I'm talking about. If this axis is a seesaw, it looks like we're heavily weighted on the war side. Does that mean that we're absolutely going to see a war? That's not what it means. Of course not. I mean, plenty of planets are moving through Aries at all sorts of times, and we're not always in a massive war or something like that. So that doesn't make any sense. But it's just to say that we're going to see those energies of a little bit of combative, every man for himself energy, and we get to choose how we want that to show up for us. You get to choose, do I want to fight with my brother or do I want to fight for my brother? Warlike energy will be in the air for the next 3 years, but that doesn't mean that it has to be negative for you. This is something that can bring your family closer together. You can choose to fight for each other. You can choose to prioritize yourself in a way that also blesses the people around you, right? This doesn't have to be an either or kind of situation. We get to take a step back and view it all with a different perspective. With all this energy in Pisces, we can ask for a new divine perspective on how to apply this into our own lives. And I believe that we will get that when we ask for it. Ask and ye shall receive. So anyway, that is just a little preview of what we've got to look forward to for the next 3 years of this Saturn transit. Thank you for being here. Like and subscribe. Hang out with me on Facebook at Intuitive Healing and Self-Care with Ali Gisette. And I'm glad that you're here. See you later.